Good evening and welcome to the Brothers by Law podcast. So, little introduction. My name is John and...
Hello, I'm Paul.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
You know me.
I just met you.
No, you didn't.
We've
known each other for several years. I married your sister.
We met on the train.
That is not. We've never been on a train.
Yes, we did.
I've never been on any train.
I was like, bro, do you want to start a podcast? And he's like, sure. And then we went to his house. Apparently, I met my long-lost sister.
This is wrong. This is all incorrect. But yes, I suppose we'll roll with it. You met your long-lost sister.
Long-lost sister. Yeah, I said it wrong the first time.
You did.
And apparently she lives here because she married this guy.
Unfortunately for her.
That is why we decided to call it the Brothers by Law podcast, because we are brother-in-laws. So
that's true.
That's the intro.
And if I wasn't related to him by law, I wouldn't be around him.
Right. So now, obviously, you're wondering, what is this podcast? You know, why are they doing this? Why are they wasting my time? Well, so this podcast is actually going to be about manliness.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd say.
Yeah, and what that means. And we want you to figure out where you are on that journey and then how to get to the next step.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Paul?
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, he pretty much summed it up. I think the podcast's overarching theme is going to be manliness. And specifically this first episode, the first thing we're going to sort of jump into is the absolute basic building blocks of a man.
Right.
So there are a handful of traits that create a man. It's been a while since I've reviewed my nursery rhymes, but I believe it's snips and snails and puppy dog tails is the basic building blocks. Last I heard, anyway. What do you think the absolute most basic building block of a man is? What is like the one defining trait that every male human has?
Yeah. Well, male... Are you talking about being a man or being a male?
I'm talking about being a male because that's what we're working for. The manness, I think, will come along later.
Gotcha. Well, being a male, I think that's pretty simple. You know,
I swear, if you say an anatomical part, we're gonna have words.
Well, I don't know what you mean, Paul. So I know what it is.
I'm asking you. What do you think is common between every man that exists? Every human male that exists. What is the common denominator?
Well, because we have to talk about what's the difference between being a boy and a man later.
No, I just mean male. Any physical male. And don't say
you have
an anatomical part.
You have male genetics. You have to have that.
Okay.
Here's what I think. XY.
Here's what I think is the absolute basic building blocks of a man. Aggression, potential, and specifically in the terms of like physical potential energy. And thirdly, I would think smelling bad. Those are the three most absolute basic building blocks. Is they smell bad, they have a lot of physical potential energy, and aggression. So, does that sort of clarify what I was looking for?
That makes more sense. I'm glad I wasn't going to say.
Any ideas, or do you agree with those three?
I mean, yeah. So, obviously, like, a male is a male. And I think in this society, we have to say that, unfortunately. So, the last thing we want to do is get political on this podcast. But, like...
That's the first thing we're going to do.
But, there's an order in the way that we were created, and God created us male and female. And what I would say is first step is this is a podcast for actual males. So
yeah, and when we say that, we mean if you have no Y chromosome, I'm sorry, a lot of what you hear here is going to be either offensive or completely unhelpful.
Yeah, we are not here to play any politically correct games. So the whole point is like, where does this start, right? Where does this conversation of being a man start? Well, first off, who gives you even the ability to become a man? God, when he made you a male.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know if that's where you wanted me to go, but I went there. So.
No, I mean, that's fine. I think that's important to get that out of the way. I think it is probably for the best that we don't catfish anyone. We let them know that right out of the gate, we do believe that in the Bible. Yeah. And so we're dudes. We are males. We have Y chromosomes, and betwixt us a pair of reproductive organs.
Right. And yeah, three. Never mind.
3. Hold on a minute now.
I was going to go somewhere I shouldn't have gone.
That's probably
the
for the
point
best
is
you stopped yourself.
The point is we are not beating around the bush. We'll let you know right out of the gate that we're basing this off of biblical manhood.
Yeah.
This is not the world's version of manhood. There's a lot of things that we're going to contradict that are popular in culture.
100%.
There's a lot of things, and we're not going to hide it one bit. We're gonna dive into this with no fear of repercussion from, social justice warriors, that kind of stuff. So we want to get that right out of the gate. But let's talk about this. So the point I was getting to, because we're going to go over the 3 levels of a male. Notice I said male. So, Paul, what did we decide on the names for these 3 levels?
We had a couple. I think there's 3. I'm going to go with the ones that I came up with because I like them better. So we have, there's 3 levels of being a male, being a man specifically. There is boxed wine, bottled wine, and aged wine, which is probably not super helpful, so I will give you the proper modern words. We have a simp, a man, and a Chad. What do we mean by simp? Well, if you don't know what a simp is, basically that is a complete pushover of a man. They are man in sex only. So a simp is someone who is not willing to stand up for himself, who is not willing to treat women in the way that they ought to be treated, does not have a proper relationship with the other men in his life, I would say.
Right.
And someone who just generally you wouldn't want to be involved with in any kind of deep way.
A good word for this kind of, I don't want to say male. I'm being really,
generous with that.
So a really good word is harmless, actually. And why do
Continue.
You don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't.
Harmless is a really good way to describe a weak man, a simp. Some would say beta male. I don't like that term. It's kind of
I don't
weird.
either. I think
It's
that's really
weird.
gross.
We'll talk about that, actually.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that later in the podcast. But harmless. If a man is harmless, that is not a good thing. I want to open that up.
I would agree.
So, if a man cannot hurt anyone, does not have the ability to hurt anyone, that's not a good thing. Because who can he protect? If a man cannot stand up for himself, he's harmless. He can't help himself. He can't help other people. So a good man is actually kind of dangerous. So a simp, or our first boxed wine category, is a man that's helpless. That's something I want to put in there for sure.
I would like to caveat that and say that is type A. We can call that the white wine of boxed male. Okay, you say that a simp is harmless. I would say that they are far from harmless. I would say they are...
Yes.
So, for reference, the kind of people that we're going to lump into this box are abusers, men who beat women, men who murder women, men who sexually assault women, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I say this... So I disagree with your use of the word harmless, but I think I know where you're going with it, where it's just they are like the low tier. We don't want to be involved with them.
So let me So I'm not saying that a weak man cannot be harmful. I'm saying it's not a virtue to be harmless.
Okay, I would agree. I would say...
I don't think I did a very good job of describing that.
I would say not, but I agree. Yeah, a harmless man is not a good man. I agree 100% what you said. A man should be able to do harm to the right people.
Right.
So simp or boxed wine tier, or as the probably most recognizable thing is boys. That's with a Y, not an I, by the way. Boys are pretty much the worst, because this is going to be anybody who completely fails in the role of a man. So what do we think are good qualities for men? And then we can talk about, as we go on, we can talk about to what extent the 3 tiers of man or male fulfill those qualities. One quality that I think is super duper important for a man is, I'll go ahead and take the easy one, danger. I think a good thing for men to be able to do is to be dangerous. If you have, picture with me, if you will, that you are walking down a dark alley and you're alone with your father or your positive male role model, and he is a complete useless, physically, he just can't throw a punch. He's not going to be the person you want next to him if you get mugged. You're going to want somebody who's big, who's strong, who's fast, who's got rough knuckles that can do what he needs to do. So I would say we're going to put this as scrappiness. Scrappiness is a good quality for a man. And I think there are levels of that which will correspond to the 3 tiers. What's another quality you think is good for a man?
So I think a really important one that so many people lack, and this is for men and women, but especially for men, I think, is being a man of your word. That means literally everything. So, if you say that you're going to do anything, it could be as simple as taking the garbage out, which is, that could be as simple as that. But like, if you tell like your wife or anyone that you're going to take the garbage out, they should be able to like cash a check on. They should be able to take that to the bank and sign it and put it in the deposit, and you should be able to count on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Agreed.
They're going to do it.
So trustworthiness. So we've got scrappiness, trustworthiness. Yep. I think one that is super important is, because I'm sticking with the nesses, I'm going to say stick-to-itiveness, because that's one word. That's not hyphenated. The quality of being able to force yourself to go through something that is uncomfortable or unpleasant in the pursuit of something better. I think that's really important, and these 3 tiers of men that we're going to talk about are going to have varying levels of that. So we've got scrappiness. We've got what was yours? I said it was your second one. I had a one word for it. It was scrappiness.
Sticking to your words.
Honestness. That's not what it was. Dependability.
Dependability. I think
sure, we'll go with that. And then stick-to-itiveness. And then the fourth one. What do you think is a fourth one? I think if we get 4, we could go.
Let's see here. Another. And
if you don't have a fourth one, that we can just move from there and
no, you're fine.
Come back in a bit.
And we don't, we're just talking. It's fine. It's a podcast.
Yeah.
Another thing that a man should be able to do. I think a man should have his purpose aligned.
That's a good one.
You can't skip that one.
Yeah, knowing what you're supposed to be doing.
And that, for me, that was literally, I got that a year ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it takes time for a lot of people.
For sure. I think that a really, really important one is being able to problem solve. I think, and I don't mean that just in the way of like you're in a locked room and there's, one table. How do you get out? You cut a hole in the table and that makes it whatever. But like the idea of like lifetime problem solving. So what I mean by that is like say this is a situation from my life. Let's pretend that you are a single man not a single man. You're a man who's dating and you're making like $7.45 an hour, give or take. And you meet a girl and you start dating her and you decide that you want her to be your wife. You have to problem solve to find out how you can afford that wife, because $7.45 is not going to cut it. So you have to either problem solve and find out what you can cut out of your life that $7.45 can be stretched to afford a wife, or you have to find a way to make more money. I think that is like lifetime problem solving, which is vital for any man.
That goes into a lot of things. It goes into, patience, and it goes into a topic that we could talk about, which is like, okay, whose job is it in the family to provide?
Yeah.
So like society would say it's 50-50 between like men and women, right?
I don't know. This is an awful big can of worms to get into. You and I have argued about this at length before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's worth getting into tonight. We could make that like next week's. But I don't know. Do you want to get into this fight? We can do that.
I think it's important. I don't think we can ignore it. I think it's not wrong. This is my point. As a man, like, the responsibility of providing for your family lies on you.
Okay.
It doesn't lie on her. Does that mean that she can't make money? No. It doesn't mean that she can't even... That doesn't mean she can't make more money than you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a whole... Women aren't typically happy in that situation, in my opinion. But we don't have to get into that. But the point is, that's not necessarily wrong. And the whole point of that is what I'm trying to say. I sound like the... have you ever had a dream that... the point of it is that as a man, it's your job to make sure your family is provided for, and that falls on you. And it's that simple.
Sure.
I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, let me get in my little opinion here. I don't believe that it's wrong for the woman to be the sole provider of the household.
I do.
That's fine, but I'm going to caveat what I said. I don't believe it's wrong for the woman to be the sole provider. However, if the woman loses her job, that duty to get a job that can provide the family immediately does fall to the man. It's not her responsibility to get another job. Now that said, this is a conversation that warrants like an hour and a half just to itself.
Yeah, we don't have to get into this.
I don't think that it's wrong for the wife to be the sole provider, as long as the husband is not, or the man is not forsaking his other responsibilities. I don't necessarily see a problem. Like if my wife was making more money than me and it was just more, say we had kids. If my wife was making more money than me and it would be cheaper for me to be the stay-at-home dad as opposed to working and then paying for daycare, I don't think it's wrong for me to quit my job and start working as a full-time dad. I don't think that's wrong.
I disagree.
I mean, that's fine.
So hard. To the point I want to talk about it.
Well, see, I think we should stay focused on what we were talking about. We can make that next times because this, I can tell this is going to be a very long conversation. So I don't think we should. We have a map. We should follow it at least a little bit. First round. We'll see how long it takes. I mean, if it does, yeah, we can round back around to this. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, we can talk about that. So okay, we're gonna summarize the few things that we had so far. So we had honesty, dependability. We had stick-to-itiveness. We had problem solving. I feel like you had another one in there that I've forgotten. Do you remember what it was? Honesty, problem solving, stick-to-itiveness, dependability. That's 4. I mean, that's plenty to work with.
Yeah, sure.
Let's work with that. So, honesty. How would a boxed wine tier guy show, like, what level of honesty do you think a boxed wine tier has? What are some, like, examples you've seen either in real life or in, like, celebrities' lives or whatever? What do you got?
Okay, so when it comes to, like, here's an example. In the dating world, a boxed wine guy with his honesty will do...
I love that term so much.
Boxed wine. Yeah. The boy with a Y.
Not an I. It's very important.
Will, in dating, like, for example, to treat women terribly.
Yeah.
And here's how they do it when it comes to honesty. They will string women along. Right? It's like... They will use women for sex, for example, right? So, like, they don't have any interest in a relationship with the person.
Yeah.
But every guy wants sex, right? So they will just let the girl think that he has feelings for her. Gosh, and let that go down, and then she becomes attached, and he just uses her.
Maybe another way that I've never been involved in like super heavily in the dating world. I've seen it, a lot of dating world stuff play out. One way I can see is leading the woman on to believe that she's the only one that he's talking to, maybe something like that. Yeah. So that level of honesty is not going to be very high. The second, we didn't introduce the other 2 tiers. I think we said man and Chad. We said bottle and aged wine. We should explain that. So, Boxed wine, for those of you who don't know, boxed wine is the wine you get at Walmart. That is like $8 for the equivalent of 4 bottles worth of wine. is a ridiculous amount. It's not very good. I mean, it's palatable, sure, but it's not great. Then you've got bottled wine, which is like sort of your mid-tier. You've got like anywhere from 14 to like $30 a bottle, where it can be really solid wine. It can be perfectly acceptable. Comes in a nice little pretty bottle, maybe has a pretty label on it. And it's good. It's good wine. It's nice. It's enjoyable. It's fine to have. And then you've got the aged wine. So the aged wine is going to be the stuff that's been like kept in a underground bomb shelter for 400 years. And this is the kind of stuff that people would fight and die for. So in terms of man, that's going to be, boxed wine is going to be your incredibly immature, and I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally and spiritually immature man. You've got the bottled tier wine, which is the acceptable. This is where most people live. Most people are going to be for a very long time. And then the aged wine is the people like, if you've had a really good dad, count yourself blessed to have a really good dad. It's an incredible luxury. And, so if you have had that really good dad, that's going to be that guy. That's going to be the dude who is a wise leader. He's been with the same woman for, I don't know, how long's your dad's been married? Like 30 years?
30 some years.
Yeah. Like, he knows how to love one woman. He knows how to be great advice. He's saved us, betwixt the two of us, probably at least 40 grand worth of, like, bills for just repairing stuff.
Yeah.
So this is going to be your, like, high-tier aged wine type guy. So the honesty thing is the way it's going to show itself, as we talked earlier with the simp or the boxed wine tier guy, is going to be, he's going to be completely dishonest. He's going to be 99% of the time not honest with anything that he shows. So he's going to lead people on. He's going to act like you're the only person in his world, even though he's talking to 12 other girls right now. The bottled wine. So as a disclaimer, this is where I think John and I consider ourselves to be. I would say we both think ourselves to be bottled wine. We're definitely not aged.
Right.
This is where we both consider ourselves to be. So how would you say that honesty plays out in a bottled wine tier guy? What would you say? So again, with the simp tier, it's like he's going to lead you on. He's going to act like you're the only person he's talking to. How do you suppose is a counterpoint for a bottled wine guy?
Right. By the way, on the first point, on the first tier with the guy that's leading the girl on, it can go the other way too.
Sure.
So it can be the guy that's saying, yeah, I'm okay with being a friend. Like, let's just be friends.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's you can be a jerk or you can be a weakling, but they're both weak.
They're both not good. They're both exactly
they're
not
both
what
weak,
you want to be.
But it's just in different ways of being weak.
Sure.
Anyway, so
Sure.
You were asking the question, what do I think is, where does honesty come in with, like, a bottled wine? I think it just means that you're honest most of the time.
Yeah. I'd agree. So, like, in what situations... So, like, it's one thing to say that someone's honest, but, like, in what actual situations that you come across have you had the opportunity to be honest where you believe you've earned the title of bottled wine?
Yeah, for sure. Like, talking... Yeah, like, dating comes up in my mind a lot, I guess, but, like talking to a girl and realizing, like, hey, we don't have the same values, and getting on the phone and saying, hey, look, I like you a lot, you're cool, however, we believe different things. I'm not going to keep talking to you because
Sure.
we don't agree. So it's as a man, once you get to the bottled wine, in my opinion, you're not perfect. You're not a saint, but 80% of the time you do the right thing. It doesn't mean you're always honest.
I think bottled wine can mean that you're just more often than not. So I think anything higher than 51% of honesty is bottled wine. And obviously, bottled wine covers a large variety of types of wine. Boxed wine is all pretty much acceptable at best. Whereas bottled wine can range anywhere from acceptable and even subpar to, like, really good for what it is. So I think bottled wine is kind of this cheat level where it's probably should be encapsulated in, like, 15 different tiers. But, like, it all falls into one, because I think so long as you're, more often than not, if you're being honest, if these, like, 4 things that we've talked about, if you are 51% of the time doing the right thing on these situations, you're a bottled wine guy. Right. Now, if that gets up to, like, 80 or 90, then you start getting into the aged wine territory. But I think anything higher than 51%, you're a bottled wine guy.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think it's pretty fair. It just means that, I would say more than 50%, you know what I mean? Because
So like 51 so I'd say like 51 to like, I'm going to say 79. 51 to 79 I feel like is your bottled wine territory.
I think
because
it's just that
more often than not, you're doing the right thing.
Hard to put a number on it, but like I feel like it just means that you're generally where
trying.
you should be.
Yeah.
And when you'll kind of see, like when we get to the next, aged wine, fancy like $200 wine,
the Chad
of wine, that's where it's perfected.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Not only as close as perfection.
So like this is the difference between like a bottled wine and an aged wine, right? A bottled wine, and I'm gonna get away from the analogy. A good man, and then the great man.
Yep.
Is really what we're breaking down.
Yeah.
The good man knows that he needs to tell the truth and does it.
Yeah.
The great man knows the right words to use while he's telling the truth.
That's really good. So honesty plus tact.
Honesty plus wisdom and tact from being honest for a long time.
Yeah.
Knowing it's like, how do you tell someone that they are doing something wrong? Well, you have to tell them, but how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's the next level.
The best way to tell them. I 100% agree with that.
So this is the best way to think about it. All the things that a man should be in that middle section.
Yep.
The great man has perfected it, and he knows how to do it with swag.
Yeah. Knows how to do it with grace. Knows how to do it with the swag in his walk. Yeah, I'd agree, 100%. So now that we've talked about the mid-tier, we've kind of warmed up the high tier. What would you say that the high tier man? How are some ways that you've watched a Chad tier man deliver honesty? What are some ways you've seen that?
Mm-hmm. I'll get like kind of personal. So like, I won't tell all the details because people are involved and stuff. But like, there was something I was doing, and it was wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's this guy in my life. We'll call him Tim.
Oh, Tim.
His name's really close to that, but just because, he sat me down and he confronted me about something I was doing, right? And he's like, John,
what are you doing?
He was like, can I ask you a question? And then you're scared. You're like,
oh yeah,
crap.
That terrifies you.
He's like, when you did this thing, you knew that was wrong, was it? And I sat there like in silence, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, right.
Yeah.
But like, if someone like a bottled wine, like maybe us, I would hope we would handle it well, and I think we would most of the time. But like, we might not know exactly how to go about that. We might be like, hey man, why are you doing that, dude?
Yeah.
Like,
we're gonna come on aggressively.
You don't have any swagger, but like a wise man, they have like this grace about them where they're kind of like, hey, it's okay, but 100%. You know what you did was wrong.
100%. I think that's great. I think that's a great example for honesty in a aged wine, in a Chad. Another thing we're going to talk about. So I think we'll move on to the next of the four that we talked about. So dependability.
Dependability.
So we've talked about honesty, dependability. So dependability obviously is just meaning what you say and saying what you mean. So a boxed wine type individual. How's a boxed wine person going to register on the dependability scale? What are some ways you can see shortcomings happening?
The best word to describe that is flaky.
That's beautiful.
Right.
You had a drummer like that. We're not going to mention anything more than that. But
don't say that. I had drummers like that. So, okay, like musicians, I'm in a band called Foxpaw. You should look it up. We're on SoundCloud.
Please don't.
Now, we're SoundCloud rappers that play alt rock. Anyway, okay, so like most people are like this, and you could really just break the gender thing here and say men and women are like this.
Oh yes, everyone's like this.
Right.
Everyone does this.
Hey, I'm interested in being in your band. This is especially bad for musicians.
Okay.
All right. Hey, great, man. Well, we have a practice at 7 o'clock on Sunday. We'll see you at 7 o'clock on Sunday. Sound good?
Sweet. I will be there.
And they'll say yes. Now 7 o'clock rolls around. Are they there?
It's no, but it's 8:51 and I just showed up. Is that acceptable?
No, because I'm home. And so the point is like that person. What are they saying when they do that? One, they're saying, "Hey, I'm not dependable at all.
Yeah.
Number 2, I don't respect your time.
Yeah.
Number 3,
you're not as important as I am.
you're not as important as... It's just a deep level of disrespect. And like, I see this in sales on a level that is horrendous. And I get it. I get that I'm in sales.
Yeah.
But even it goes to even when you're talking to like a salesman.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want them off the phone. I get it. Right? It's annoying to talk to them.
But if you're going to lie to someone that you value very little, you're going to lie to someone... If you're going to lie to get out of an uncomfortable situation with someone you don't care about, why would you bother not lying to someone that you do care about?
It kind of goes like this. A boxed wine would lie to a salesperson.
Yeah.
A bottled wine... a bottled wine...
Would just say they don't want to talk to you.
Would just say they don't want to talk to you.
And an aged wine
aged
would
wine
be like...
Would hang up the phone.
an aged wine is going to be like...
Would block your number.
I understand that I don't want to be rude. It's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I don't want to waste your time, is how I think a boxed wine or an aged wine would say. I say, your time is more valuable than it is...
No.
Your time would be better spent talking to someone other than me.
So, like, I think I can explain it now. I had to think a second.
It happens.
A boxed wine would say, would set an appointment.
They'll string you along.
We're talking about setting appointments, right? So if you're setting an appointment for a sales presentation, right? A boxed wine would set an appointment and not show up.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
A bottled wine, what would they do?
Yeah. As someone can say, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
They would do this. They would probably lie about it. And well, I'm not doing very good here.
Here. I'll role play. I'll be the salesman. Hey, let's set up a time to meet. How's like Saturday at noon work for you?
Okay, fine. I'll be there.
All right. So that's a boxed wine, and then he's not going to show up. Bottled wine. Hey, Saturday noon.
This is the problem. We're trying to make... Okay, so you listened to that. That was a mess. A man can admit his mistakes. There are 2 categories, and I know we have 3 categories for different types of men, but there's only 2 ways you can handle this. Okay, listen. Someone that does not have integrity is the best way to put this. Will say, I'm going to make an appointment with you, and I'm going to see you at that time, and then they won't show up.
Yep.
Right? That's terrible. It's annoying. It's
Nobody
wrong.
likes that.
Even if it's a salesperson. A high quality person, our aged wine, this is the second category, and sometimes the bottled wine, will say no.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. They will say no. And as a salesperson, you think, I have to vent about this for a second. Like salespeople, you think they want to hear yes, and then you just don't show up. No, that's worse than just saying no.
Yeah,
I'd rather just hear no.
Then you've wasted their time.
Yeah, because we set an appointment for you. Basically, I was mad at work today. I'm venting through the podcast. Okay?
I mean, that's fair. I'd like to take over for you real quick. I'm going to tag in. So I think another way you could put this is a boxed wine person.
So bad.
It is what it is. A boxed wine person is going to they're going to make an appointment and then not show up. A bottled wine is going to say just flat out, no, I'm busy. Thanks, I'm sorry, I don't need your services. Whereas an aged wine...
No, wait, I got it.
Hold, no, you've had your chance. An aged wine is going to say, you know what? They're going to explain why they don't want to meet. So they're going to say, I don't need this product that you're selling. So you would be better off spending your time talking to someone other than me. Because I already have the product that you're selling from somebody else. I don't need this. So you are wasting your time. So they're gonna tell you ahead of time. They're not just going to say no. They're going to explain why it's no. Which I would imagine as a salesman, you appreciate to at least know why they're telling you no. Because if someone just says no, that could mean a whole bunch of reasons. So you don't know if that means reach out again, wait a little bit. But if they say no and here's why, there's no ambiguity. You can just be like, all right, I can leave you alone.
I know you don't want me to speak again.
No, I'm saying you can speak.
But
I just wanted to finish mine.
But I got it. I totally
Allegedly.
got the perfect analogy.
Uh-huh.
You've been waiting for 4 minutes, guys. Are you ready?
I'm not ready.
Boxed wine would say, yes, let's set the appointment, and then not show up.
Okay. We've covered that ground already.
Yes. The bottled wine
lot.
would say, maybe later.
Ooh.
And then the aged wine would say no.
Okay. All right, I'll give you that. I will say that's pretty good.
Took me a while.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. You're only a salesman. Got him. Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it, though. Yeah, a boxed wine will stand you up. A bottled wine will say maybe later. And a aged wine will just flat out tell you no.
The whole point of it is that time is valuable. And if you want to be a high quality man, you have to like respect.
You have to understand that, and you have to be dependable.
I know that was just kind of funny, but like
that
that's
took
our whole
like
point.
5 to 10 minutes to explain that one super simple point we could have summarized in a sentence. We're gonna move on to the next one because I'm afraid one of us is gonna start a conversation again. Stick-to-itiveness.
I mean, the box.
Shut up. Stick-to-itiveness. So, stick-to-itiveness is something that is near and dear to my heart. So stick-to-itiveness, what do I mean by that? The willingness and the capability to do something that you don't like, that's unpleasant, that's uncomfortable, for a better reward later. So I'm going to go ahead and take point on this one if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
So the boxed wine man is going to say stick-to-itiveness is completely superfluous and I don't need it. So this is going to be the person that is going to say, they're going to be focused entirely on themselves. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation that, again, is an actual situation from my life. I was dating a girl, and I realized that I wanted her to be my wife. So I had to come up with a way that I wanted her to be my wife. So what I did was I looked for a job because my money that I was making at the time was just not going to cut it. So I looked for a different job. And I found a job, and then about a month after I started working there, I realized that when I woke up in the morning, the very first thing that on my mind was killing myself. I genuinely would wake up in the morning, and the first thought in my brain was, I want to be dead. I want to not be alive. So a boxed wine person is going to see a situation like that, and they're going to say, it's not worth it. I refuse to put myself in that kind of duress. You know? A bottled wine person is going to suffer through it in silence or in silent aggression. Basically, they're going to do it, and this is what I think I did, is I suffered through it, and I bottled up all those emotions. Bottled wine, bottled them up. I bottled up all those emotions, and I sat on them, and then they would come out at people at bad times. I think that is not a great way to do it, and it's not the worst way to do it, but it's definitely not the right way to do it. An aged wine person is going to wake up in that type of situation, and they're going to recognize their emotions, and they're going to say, those emotions don't define me. I can work through those emotions. So that is sort of my little soapbox for working in situations that are incredibly painful.
And I think kind of what it is like you didn't know exactly. If you knew like the right job you should have been in, you would have been in it. Like you were trying to do the right thing. You didn't exactly know how or where, but you kind of knew like right now. Yeah. It's like, this is the best I can do and I have to stick with this even though it's not completely right.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the point. I think like
stick-to-itiveness.
A boxed wine isn't really trying. A bottled wine is trying but doesn't really know how.
And an aged wine is just
is trying and knows how.
It's beautiful. It's a work of art. Yeah. And what was the fourth one we had? So it was dependability, honesty, stick-to-itiveness, and I know I had problem solving, but I feel like there was a different one that I listed like 5-10 minutes ago.
Problem solving. Well, we were talking about like providing, but I don't think we got in an argument about that.
We did. Let's go with problem solving real quick.
Okay.
And then if we think of it, we'll come back to it. So problem solving. I think this is absolutely integral for a man to have. So problem solving, like I mentioned earlier, is not just seeing a square hole and having a square peg and realizing that square peg must go in that square hole. It can also be something like what we talked about, finding the right path forward in life. So, like I talked about, the right path forward to be able to get married was to take that job that I absolutely hated and made me want to kill myself. that was the right path forward because it let me get married. Now, it wasn't a fun solution, but it was the right solution. So, does that seem fair to you? Just like that solution finding is important?
It's leadership.
Yeah.
Because, like, this is the, like, as men, we have the ability to detach from our emotions more.
Yeah.
And, this is where it could get a little bit political. You're meant to be the leader of your family, right? And that means that at the end of the day, you make the decisions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if they're not popular, you just take that role.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes that means doing things that are unpleasant, right? So like if you don't have any money, sometimes that means like, okay, well,
guess I'm working 2 jobs.
Yeah, we're working 2 jobs, and by the way, until we have a certain amount of money in the bank, maybe that's 3 to 6 months of emergency, we're not gonna walk inside a restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's gonna suck for the family for a while. But as the man, that's what you have to do to protect your family.
Yeah, and that's problem solving.
That's problem solving. But I think a better way to put problem solving is like leadership.
Yeah, I would agree. I just like the term. I like problem solving. But I agree. Leadership. Yeah. We'll go to that because that's different. So ways that a boxed wine is going to show their existence on the leadership scale, I think is obviously the most obvious one is they're going to forego their responsibilities. And as we opened with, we are both Bible-believing Christians. That is going to be, for us, the most important thing that a man can do is, I think, spiritual leadership. I think if a man is not spiritually leading his family, he is completely useless. Doesn't need to be there.
Right.
So a boxed wine tier is not going to be in charge of the spiritual and emotional needs of his family, his people that he's in charge of. That's going to be the first thing that he fails on, and that's going to be the most important thing that he fails on. How does a bottled wine show themselves on the
leadership skill?
Yeah. How do they show up? What do they look like? Yeah,
they're the guy that's not got it all together, but their family sees them working on it. So it's interesting because I grew up with an awesome dad, and I saw that a little bit, right? So my dad used to have a temper, for example. My dad wanted the house to be clean, and when I was younger, the way he did that, coming from a military background, was coming home and yelling.
Volume.
Right. And being ticked off about it. It's like, hey, why the heck isn't this clean? You've been home all day. I've been out working and the house isn't even clean, and he's mad. Yep. And then people are more scared of him. And then I remember when my dad figured it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Lay it on me.
He came over to me one day and he's like, hey John, are those your things in the living room? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hey, can you do me a quick favor, John? And I'm like, yeah, what's that, Dad? He's like, hey, can you move those to your room, please? That was in front of me, seeing my dad move from the bottled wine to the aged wine right in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
Right? So that's an example. It's a swagger of how you do it. As a man, your job is to lead your family, and maybe part of that is keeping the house together. Right?
Problem solving of finding the best way to keep it clean.
And he wanted to do the right thing by getting us to clean the house and keep things together.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to do that, so he used intimidation, right? But then he learned, it's like, hey, I can reason with people, and I can use people skills to get things done.
100%.
So that's a good example.
I think that's the perfect example. I'm not even going to try and counter with my own.
Okay.
1, because I can't think of any right now. But 2, because that is, I think, the perfect example of a bottled wine. See, the thing about a bottled wine, I'm realizing the more we use this analogy, an aged wine is just a bottled wine plus time.
Yeah, exactly.
If you literally that's what it is. So aged wines are just bottled wines that have had longer to sit. If you opened an aged wine, 100 years earlier, it's just a bottled wine.
Right.
And so I think that example of actually, that's not true. I am going to give my dad. I'm gonna mention one story about my dad. So I have one formative memory of my dad. Is I was acting like a little crap one day. So we had a pool in our backyard, which meant that we had a pool skimmer pole. Now, this pool skimmer pole was about probably 8 or 10 feet long, metal, little aluminum thing. And I thought it would be hilarious to start swinging it around like a bow staff because I was really into Ninja Turtles, right? And I smacked my dad's hand really, really hard. And my dad also comes from a military background, so he reacted to that with a very large amount of rage. And I still remember that, and I still remember being yelled at about that. But the thing that immediately comes to my mind after that is immediately after he yelled. And this is what I think, I agree. Totally takes him from the bottled wine where he has a right to be angry, and he is angry, and pushes him up to that aged wine, is the immediate memory following that is us sitting with our feet in the pool that same night, and he looks at me and he says, Paul, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled at you. Will you please forgive me? And like John was saying, that instantly takes that bottled wine and that ages it 50 years right there, where you can say that is how a aged wine Chad tier man reacts.
Because all wine is good, but all wine has a little poison in it. You know?
Yeah, all wine is alcohol and will slowly kill you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the point is like, even if you're the aged wine, like, you're still a piece of crap.
Yeah.
Like,
agreed. All men are. Now this is one thing that
I know what you're
fourth wave feminism and I can all agree on. All men are trash. Yes.
We mean it a little differently, but
we have some different intentions. But yes, I would agree. All men are trash. It just depends on the level of trash. Anyway.
So I think the interesting about this podcast is that you just watched us work through that, and I think we landed in a better spot than where we started.
Yeah, I hope so.
We figured this out. A boxed wine is someone that has not decided to grow yet.
Yeah.
A bottled wine is someone that's growing.
That's wanting to grow.
Now, a bottled wine can also be $3.45 for moldy. But it's
true.
Still a bottled wine.
I think it's someone who's wanting to grow, not necessarily someone who is currently, but someone who has that desire. Right. And maybe it's going to take him a little while, because I know for a fact if you had asked your dad, like when he was still in military mode, like 3 years before he goes to you in the living room and says, "Hey, can you do me a quick favor?" If you'd asked him, "Hey, do you want to be able to more efficiently get your family to clean up the house or whatever?" He would say yes, absolutely. Yep. So it's the question of the desire to grow. So boxed wine is someone who doesn't want to grow; they're happy in their own filth. A bottled wine is someone who is willing to grow, who wants to grow. Yeah. And then who is going to grow. And then an aged wine is someone who I think is still growing, but has been growing long enough that they're the person you look up to and you're like, whoa. Yeah. I have people in my life. That's the thing. There's people in my life I could point out, right? Yeah. Like, where I'm like, okay, if I have a question about like the situation that I'm in, how do I handle this? I know I can call this guy. Yeah. And I probably know what he's going to say, but he can help me understand why. Yeah. He's saying what he's saying, 100%. So that's that, Yeah. I think that is some very good. So yeah, wine as an analogy. So as we asked right near the beginning, I think we did. As you've listened to us sort of work through this in our brain, which tier of wine do you find yourself to be? Do you find yourself as a boxed where you don't, and I don't want, as much as I don't want to be around boxed wine people, I don't want to say that they don't deserve help. Right. They have as much right to help as anyone else, and we want, if you listen to this and you examine yourself and you find yourself and you say, yeah, I'm probably a boxed wine person, congratulations. We've all been there, and we all still go there from time to time. I don't know if we mentioned this or if we communicated this well enough. You can totally phase in between the three tiers in a day. Yeah. Like you can wake up and be an aged wine. You can go to lunch and knock yourself down to boxed wine status, and then you go to dinner and you redeem yourself back to a bottled wine. Like you can phase in and out, all the time. 100%. So like, if you find yourself and you say, I think I am a boxed wine, we'd love to help you grow. We hope to be helpful to you, that you can see these behaviors and be like, that's what I need to do better. And if you haven't noticed from this podcast, we are not like putting ourselves up as the example or anything. I mean,
we're
not
grown a lot.
Chads.
We're not the aged wine yet. But the point is like this podcast is meant for a lot of people to come together and talk about how we can grow.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a lot. This was a very general podcast, and it was one that wasn't even well thought out.
Yeah,
but we're going to make videos and podcasts that are more specific, and we're going to go into topics and have people on. And
I think next week we're going to go for that argument topic that you got pretty spicy about real quick. I think we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah.
Because we're right around 50 minutes. I think probably sign this one off.
Yeah.
And then next week we can spend an hour fighting each other.
So signing it off, obviously go ahead and like and subscribe and everything. And we will have one next Monday or Tuesday. Depends when we figure out the software.
Hopefully Monday.
We'll see.
We'll say Monday.
But eventually it's going to be Monday night.
Yeah, Monday nights, Sunday morning, or Monday nights, Tuesday morning.
Whatever the
somewhere in
algorithm
there.
wants, but we'll figure it out.
Of course, then the question is, what time zone are you in? So we're going to say we're recording this Monday evening. It is currently 21:13:10. So
Central time.
Central
in
Standard.
Military, in normal civilian time, that's 9:13.
Yes.
So Central.
Sorry, wrong time. Wrong. All right, well, we're going to go. Thank you very much for listening, if indeed you have. Have a delightful week and do your best this week to be an aged wine.
Yep. That's right.
Be an aged wine.
Which one are you, and how can you become the next one?
But choose to be the aged wine.
We don't want to be aged wine.
Always.
Even though we're drinking box wine right now.
Shh. Have a good week.